Okay, so I'd been involved in theater since I was in the 8th grade is when I officially like took a class for it, but it always felt like it was something I had to do. So like I remember in the 3rd grade, our teacher like she wanted to do a play version of the Three Little Pigs, and then she randomly picked like who would be, you know, pig 1, pig 2, pig 3, and then the big bad wolf. And I remember being livid. Like I went home and cried when I found out that I was just going to be in the chorus. And then like after that, it kind of like whenever we would read plays in class, I would want to like read for like all of the characters. And so when I did theater in the 8th grade, it just kind of felt really natural for me. So yeah, I'd always been interested in that, but I'd also had been really like into vaudeville and burlesque. And I remember like seeing photos when I'd taken like a theater history 2 class. And we talked about burlesque and we would see like the posters from the vaudeville shows, and I was always like, it just looked so awesome and like really glamorous, and there was something really appealing about it to me. And so I'd always wanted to try it. It wasn't until last year, like 2012 now, it was like two years ago, there had been like a huge traumatic shift in my family. And because of that, and yeah, I feel like this is going on a tangent, but because of that event, I had like had this like urge to kind of channel all that, like, or not channel, I would distract myself by not eating a lot and exercising too much. Like I would jog to my Pilates class in the morning, take Pilates, I would go to an African dance class, and then go to the gym for 30 minutes, and then go through the school day. I would only like live on like a half a sandwich and like a really like small shake before the day started. And then after school, I would go home and work out for an hour. Because of that, like I could see a change in my body, and like I was growing confident, I decided to give burlesque a shot. Felt like I had to do this. Like for some reason, deep down in my soul, I felt like that it would heal me in some way. And so I remember like the night that the show kind of finally went up and like everything was kind of out of my hands at that point. I did the dance, and like in a way, no, not even in a way. This was definitely like doing that dance. I was kind of reclaiming my body and like being okay with it by showing everyone else. And it wasn't really showing everyone like, look at what I've done, look how small I am, you know, I'm like I have like, you know, forearm or like big muscles and stuff. It was like I was just kind of showing them who I am, and not really what I've become. And so it was sort of like I was accepting my body by taking off my clothes. And also symbolically, I was like kind of shedding that weight that of what had just happened. So yeah, burlesque definitely like at that time completely changed how I looked at myself. And I was thinking about it, like since then I've never really like I was never really super paranoid about what I was eating. Like I'd be conscious, you know, like oh shit, I gained, you know, a couple pounds, but it wasn't, if I had gained an ounce of weight back then, like I would go to tears, you know. It was very horrible. So I decided to go to grad school after the show. After the show, I had to make a decision if I wanted to go to Purdue or not, and it was very weird because it was like I could either stay here and not do anything and have to deal with everything that's going on, or I can, you know, continue focusing on myself and go to this like amazing program that they want to pay me to go to school. I'm okay with that. So a big reason why I wanted to go was because with what had happened was so triggered by fear and being afraid to leave, because Coos Bay is such a small town, and there's nothing the only thing you could really do there is get pregnant or get hooked on meth. and that's pretty much it. And so I had this like fear of staying, you know, because people would stay in Oregon because they're afraid. I feel like a lot of my friends that have stayed. But specific with the event that had happened to me, I really felt like it was an extreme example of what would happen if I had stayed and was too afraid to branch out and do anything outside of the box. So I really wanted to make sure that I didn't box myself. Before Todd passed away, I was so afraid of everything. Like I told myself, I'm not going to be an actress. I remember telling someone, I will be a theater teacher and I want to inspire like the next Meryl Streep, or like, I don't want to be a really good actress. I just want to like let somebody else do it. And looking back now, I was just like cutting myself so short. So it was sort of like a light, like a switch went off as soon as it happened, and I was like, I can't let myself be afraid of everything and not give it a try. And like I tried something and it like I'm here now. I'm having an amazing time. Just did a really awesome show. We had just closed Spring Awakening. Spring Awakening was like sort of difficult sometimes because it hit really close to home, like really close to home. And I remember there was like a specific scene and it was a funeral sing and we all had to sing, and like singing for me also just kind of already automatically brings up a lot of emotions. Like I realized I could sing, like I could be totally pissed off at something, like livid at something, and I'll go sing a song and I'm like, oh, whatever, I feel better. During a funeral scene, we would sing this song. I remember because it was a funeral and it was so close to home, I remember I just lost it and I started crying. And normally, like, I hate this about actors sometimes when they have an emotion, like, you know, tears especially, they want to show it off and like, you know, look at me, I'm so like moved by this experience. And I couldn't do that because the tears weren't like from my imagination. Like I wasn't putting myself in this imaginary world. I was kind of reliving a very traumatic experience. And so I had to like kind of step in the closet and hide for a second. But I think after that, like I had to get it out first so I could continue on with the rest of the show. But after that, that scene became like pretty, not therapeutic, but it kind of let me know that I could separate my real life from being in a show, because I can't, you know, it's so unhealthy to like bring up the same painful memory in a performance, because, and it's also, it's, to me it kind of seems like you're cheating, you know, because you want to use your imagination when you're acting. In my undergrad at the University of Oregon, I was in a production of I Ain't Your Uncle, which is like a retelling of Uncle Tom's Cabin, and we had to act like stereotypical characters, and like I was cast as Aunt Jemima, and I had to do the whole like, you know, I was just being a stereotype. And I remember I hated being in that, like I hated that we were doing that show, because I was so against bringing focus to my ethnicity. And so it was a pretty important show for me, because I got really comfortable being a woman of color. That sounds so woman of color, but I mean, it's true. So I was in this production, and it was already like a life-changing experience, because I looked at myself differently. And I remember we were doing a scene where one of the characters, it was a really emotional scene where one of the character, I was playing a 15-year-old girl, and she gets raped by Simon Legree. And we did the rape scene. It was it's always like emotional after that, because it's never fun to play a rape victim on stage. But I went back into my green room, And I look at my phone and I have all these missed calls and I have all these text messages, and I was like, okay, everyone knows I'm doing a show right now, like, you know, what's going on? So I look at my phone, I get a text from my grandma, and it says, there'd been an accident, your mom is fine. And I was like, okay, obviously something's wrong with Todd. Like, I was thinking there was a car accident, maybe he's in the hospital. And I also got a lot of text messages from my biological father. And so I called him because my brother was over there, and like I figured I could also talk to my brother while I'm calling my dad. And I call him up on the phone and I said, Dad, cut the shit. What happened? Just tell me what happened right now. And he said, Todd killed himself. And I screamed and shut off the phone. And I remember, because I was in the dressing room, I was surrounded by all these mirrors, and I couldn't escape that look on my face. And I don't think I've ever seen what that kind of grief looked like. So I found out that he had died, and I had another scene to do. And I remember walking down the hall, and I was like in shock. Like, I just had no idea what was happening. And even though he didn't say how he died, like, I mean, he said he killed himself, but there could have been a number of different ways, but I knew that it was with a gun. And the next scene I had to do, I had to stand behind one of the characters and she shoots Simon Legree. And I remember I went back there, and before I went on, I looked at the stage manager and I was like, I can't do this. And they didn't know what had happened, so they were just like, stop it, go on, just stop it, just go on. And so I went on stage, and I remember just like, luckily I didn't have any lines, like, would have no idea what would have come out of my mouth at that time. But she pulled out the gun and shot it, and that was the only time that I don't remember hearing the gunshot, and I think it was because I was just so, you know, I was just not there. And then luckily that was the only scene I had to do, and so right after we went on, that scene was over, I ran away. I ran into the lobby, and my aunt and my grandma were there, and I didn't come out for curtain call. I think the most frustrating thing was the next day people kept asking, I saw the show, but you weren't at curtain call, and it was hard because I almost felt like sort of embarrassed to say why, or like, it was sort of like at that time I didn't want people to know. And then I had one more show that next day, and they were talking, they were like, Chelsee, you don't have to do it, we could cut your scenes, we could just go around it, you can stay home, or you could go back to Coos Bay and be with your family. And I thought, I just didn't want to do that, because that was the one opportunity I had to escape and enjoy being on stage and being someone else before shit really hit the fan. Normally we're supposed to take off our jewelry for performances like that, and Todd had given me this ring when I was 16. I left it on, and it had like a completely different meaning, I think, because I felt like he was with me, and I'm not really like a religious or spiritual person, but I really felt like, you know, that was my way of saying goodbye, was keeping him with me, doing the most meaningful thing for me is acting. And so that was kind of my way of like making sure he was with me at a time when I'm really vulnerable. Todd was really cool. Like, people called him Fabio. He had really long blonde hair, and he was just really chilled out dude. He was always like, right on. He was the first guy that my mom had ever been with that I actually felt like was my dad. He'd come to my shows. He would call me on my birthday. He would go out of his way for me, and I knew, like, I totally knew that he loved me like his own He'd actually told me that many times. He would make sure that like he would like run up and give you like the biggest hug, and you could feel his arm shaking, and he just loved feeling me in his arms, you know. And he was my dad, basically. And sorry. You know, he did so much for my mom too, showing her what love is, you know, cause she had like really shitty boyfriends, and he just loved her. Like I remember him saying, you know, push it, like he would like I was sitting next to my mom on the couch, and he like pushed me out of the way, and he was like, "I'm sorry, Chach, but I just really want to sit next to your mom. She's so beautiful." And I was like, "That's fine, Todd." He let me know what a family really felt like, I think. No, I know that, not even I think.